Hey, folks, welcome back to More Than a Refresh, the T3D sessions. We are here with Marcel Kornacker. Marcel, introduce yourself and let us know what we're talking about.
Josh, thank you for having me here. Yeah, my name is Marcel. I am I want to say, computer science person by training. My background is really in databases, database internals, query execution. I have worked on. Do you want me to go a little bit into my background?
Yeah, please. I mean, legitimacy is always good.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, was at Google in the 2000s. Worked on scalable data infrastructure. Was the tech lead for the query engine side of an internal database system called F1, which in the database world would be considered a hybrid transactional analytic processing system. Um, After Google, I joined Cloudera in 2010, and I was there for about 7 years. Started a project there called Apache Impala Scale-Out SQL Engine. The basically, for large-scale analytic workloads, was the this was one of the first ones to use a runtime code generation with LLVM.
Hmm.
Also co-created the Parquet file format as part of that, which has become a very successful open source columnar file format. And
Mhm.
it was basically patterned and after the column.io format from Dremel. And then after Cloudera, I got interested in AI and generative models when I was in EIR at a venture firm. And in early 22, got introduced to a bunch of computer vision people who talked about what they do and how they work with data, et cetera, which was the inspiration for Pixeltable. So basically, the recognition that, and this was early 22, so back then LLMs were not, the breakout success yet, and this didn't come until later that year. And computer vision at that point was, I want to say, one of the most popular and also most mature ways of using deep learning. And so it still is one of the most mature areas. Obviously, you have a lot of computer vision models for object detection, image segmentation, things like that, that all in that all come from that domain. And yeah, basically talking to computer vision engineers and learning about their how central data is to what they do. In particular, model training, right? So they do this whole like they train models that run on edge devices, and when you do that, you need to then go back, figure out where they fail, and then basically you're in this loop where you're constantly trying to improve your training and test sets and so forth. And so this was part of what inspired Pixeltable, and then also the recognition that in the AI space, unlike the business analytics space, the data generation is actually a big part of your workload. So in business analytics, data just shows up and you load it somewhere, and then you run a bunch of queries, often via business intelligence tools. But in the AI space, the data generation side is actually very important, time consuming, and this is where a lot of the engineering goes. And so Pixeltable was basically started as a new way of looking at handling that data and in particular pulling in, basically giving you a database abstraction so the data is surfaced as a table, which makes it very easy to reason about, but also pulling in the transformation steps that are needed to produce that data and run these models. So you can have basically computed columns in these Pixeltable tables that allow you to do data transformations such as image resizing or basically text breaking text down, but then also doing model inference, calling models, taking the output of the models and moving that into the table. So basically the table acts both as a cache as well as an orchestration layer for your generative AI applications. And I'm going to
Okay,
stop
so
here.
two things real quick. One, and this is kind of out of left field, but one, how does it feel to say back then when referring to only 2022?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of illustrates the amount of progress that has been made, but also the how much more, I want to say, how much broader these models and broadly applicable these models have become. Like I said, back then, LLMs were not all that capable yet. And so
Mhm.
obviously nowadays, everything, LLMs are everywhere, but it's not just LLMs, right? When you look back and look at what's available now, generative models, sure, text generation, great, but we also have far more capable models that do text to image generation, that do image to video, right?
Yeah.
Animating images, that do text to video, all of these things, and text to audio as well. Like, you have this sort of explosion of models. They're getting much better, and you also have many more modalities. Right now, you have really capable audio models, video models, image models. And I want to say the application areas are really interesting, right? These models are really capable, and you see more and more products come out that utilize them effectively, right? So we're working with design partners in the video ads space that are using generative models, right? This is like a tailor-made. Uh,
So with Pixeltable, which is if it wasn't clear to our listeners, this is what you're working with and on is Pixeltable.
Correct.
It did now. Did you invent it? Is it your creation?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I started Pixeltable as a personal project in late 22, to specifically, like I said, in response to what I saw computer vision people do. And I said, my database background made me look at this and say, you are not utilizing, I want to say, existing technology correctly. Like, you're doing too much work. And the systems that are at your disposal, like, you have database systems, and people, computer vision engineers stick stuff in the database systems, but a lot of that data doesn't fit. Like, a lot of that data is media data that's sitting in object stores or
Mhm.
unstructured data, and so they ended up stitching together a data system that spans all these other systems. And there was a lot of glue code. There is a lot of glue code, and it still doesn't really do what you want it to do. So, yeah, Pixeltable was basically, like I said, my conclusion was the practices are insufficient to deal with these new kinds of models effectively. And so
So
that's
what's the in practice problem? I mean, I understand what you said about glue code and have, multiple stores and trying to bring all this disparate data that you're trying to work with together. Okay. That all
yeah.
makes sense. But what's the in practice or practical problem that Pixel Table solves for people?
Right. And so Pixeltable, I think I mentioned that it's an operational data platform. Operational meaning as opposed to analytic. So it's something you use to create data to serve requests. Like Postgres is, or other such systems,
Mhm.
is an operational database
Right.
rather than an analytic database, right? So with Pixeltable, you can use it to run model inference and basically create new media out of inputs and so forth.
Oh,
And
neat.
typically, you have relatively complex pipelines that involve media objects. Let's say an input video. You might need to splice something into an input video based on a prompt. You might need to detect scene boundaries and break up your input video and then splice something in between. And all of these operations today, like I said, you need to do transformations on the underlying media. You might need to uh, um, regenerate media based on, let's say, you're doing an animated video that's a few seconds, which you might need to splice into an existing video. And doing all of this is not supported by your database system. Like, Postgres will not
Right.
do anything with videos. And so here's where Pixeltable comes in.
Well, it'll store them, but it's not going to
Well,
operationally
it
work
won't
on
it
them.
won't even store the video. It'll store a URL to the video, but it's
Right.
still up to you as the developer to then do an upload and do all this basically file handling. And so this is where Pixeltable comes in. You can basically express these things in Pixeltable as computed columns, and it will do all the data plumbing for you. So there's a very large amount of data plumbing that is involved today if you want to create applications like that. The database systems only really deal with, strings and JSON and integers and stuff like that. And you, as the app developer, you are left to do all the rest. And so Pixeltable is basically saying, you don't need to do any data plumbing. We give you a transactional interface. So if you have a 20-stage pipeline and you're inserting a new video and it runs through the pipeline, we can guarantee that it finishes every single step and that your generated media data is in the place where you want it to be. So
So it's
Pixeltable will
atomic.
also. So this is a major simplification of your stack.
No, I mean, it sounds good, and then from an in practice perspective, I mean, you're talking from the developer standpoint, which not taking away from that it makes perfect sense, especially, I do personally, do a little bit of video playing around, and,
Yeah,
one of the obnoxious video editing is terrible. It's horribly inefficient,
right.
it takes forever, and the idea that I could say, I would like this commercial or this promo or even this other video that segues at second 16, and I don't have to sit there and fiddle with bars and pauses and cuts, and it just goes whoop. That's
Yeah,
that's from a practical perspective, that's very powerful because if you extrapolate that out, like say something into the educational space where you have a great deal of video information, but it's laborious to put together. Right? Imagine a scenario where you have a university that's using Pixeltable that has a series of, 10 years of lectures, and they want to create a summary appendix that's video based. And you could just,
right.
if I'm understanding you correctly, I can type in essentially the language of what I want, and it will take those sources and mold them together into what, would take weeks. It'll handle on its own in hours or less.
Basically, yes, and it is available to developers via Python SDK. So you need to know how to put that together,
Sure.
but it really allows you to express this kind of workload without having to do all this file handling and running it yourself, right? So it really makes it simple if you know exactly, okay, second 16, and I'm going to splice something in there, and you have these pieces, you can just do that very simply. And it really gets rid of it won't solve it algorithmically for you. You still need to know what you want to do, right?
Right.
But
Sure.
doing the actual work and also doing it incrementally, right? You want to do it on one video, try it out, and then maybe do it on another 1,000. And if next week you have another 1,000, you can also rerun that. It's all incremental and so forth. And so it really, really simplifies handling that media data and doing and even getting data into the models and out of the models, right? This is also, there's a lot of work involved if you want to utilize any of these generative models, multimodal models. Like all of the data handling, upload, download, and all that stuff is work.
Cool. All right, folks, this has been another More Than a Refresh, the T3D sessions with Marcel Kornacker of Pixeltable. Thank you for joining us, Marcel.